Well, hello. Hey, today what we're going to be talking about is multiplying, dividing rational numbers. So you can see by this schedule that we're probably going to have in another week, you're going to have a quiz on this. You're going to have a chance to do the work, ask questions, make mistakes, come in and do the quiz. Okay. Okay. You also probably have a quiz coming up on um, adding and subtracting integers. Be careful, use a number line, and just be careful. Remember the rules for multiplication and division of integers is not the same as the rules for addition and subtraction of integers. So just be careful. But remember, we are going to use those rules for multiplication and division of integers today because we are also talking about multiplication and division of rational numbers. Now, we expect you've already been taught how to multiply fractions. So really the biggest thing you're going to have to remember is this. Now, if you didn't understand fractions, then you're going to watch, okay? And maybe what we'll do is we'll do a couple of these and then set you loose. So when I'm looking at these four, it's all fourth, fifth, and sixth grade math except for you have to look and say that this is a positive times a positive, which means it's a positive, right? And that this one is a negative times a positive, which means it's negative. This one is a positive times a positive, so it's positive. And this one here is a negative times a negative, which makes it positive. Boom. That's the new stuff. The other stuff is the fraction math. I'm going to review that with you because 4 out of 3 people struggle with fractions. But I'm only going to do 2 of them because it's just your fraction math, but these two are identical except for one of them is all positive and it's just 6th grade math. The one on the right over here is the one that, oh, it's a negative times a positive, so it's a negative. But once you remember that, the rest of it is, if you understood fractions, you're good with this. So I'm going to do the ones over here on the right because these are the ones you would normally do. And notice they're the same problems. Okay, so if you could do the ones on the left, you could do the ones on the right because overwhelmingly most of you passed off the multiplication of integers. Now you have the rules over here. I think you should have this crap on everything, right? You should put that on every assignment, especially this one on 4.3, okay? So now the thing to remember about fractions math is that when you multiply, you're really just going to multiply the numerator times the numerator, the denominator times the denominator. And since you probably have your hundreds chart done, that's going to be the other thing I'm going to tell you. You really want to have your hundreds chart out to be able to look at this because it's going to make life a lot easier. You're going to make less mistakes. Okay, so we know this is negative, right? And then what we're going to do is take this 3 times, and we multiply numerator times numerator, and 4 is 2 times 2. And I'm going to write out the prime factorization so that I can catch every possible opportunity to simplify. And then 7 times 15 is 3 times 5. And then now I'm looking for is, where is it that I have something in common? I can see that they both have the 3 in common. That's it. The numerator and the denominator only have the 3 in common. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So what's left on the top is 2 times 2. What's left on the bottom is 7 times 5. We said it was a negative because a negative times a positive is a negative. So this is going to be negative 4/35. That's it. And I know it can't be simplified. Remember, Bernoulli's prophecy. The most common mistakes that are going to be made on these next 4 quizzes are going to be you forgot to simplify, and you drop the negative. So you just have to be careful, okay? Now, if we look at this one, again, we said a negative times a negative is a positive. So now that we know it's positive, we're done. We just have to do the fraction math that you've learned before. So write this down if you forgot how to do this, because we've determined it's positive. Now we just have to do the fraction math, which means what we're going to do is we're going to take 6 over 1 times 2 over 3. All right, and then what that means is 6 is 2 times 3, and then we have the 2 times the 2 over the 3, right? And now if we look at that carefully, then what we see is the 3 simplify. And so really what we have is 4 over 1. And since a negative times a negative is a positive, this just equals positive 4. Yeah, notice this we do the same thing except for it's a positive times a positive, which is positive, okay? And it's the same math, it's just one's positive, one's negative, okay? So now we look at this one. Notice these are the same ones. So this is your 6th grade math, this is 7th grade math. So our question is, a positive times a negative equals, positive times a negative equals a negative. So that means now I just need to remember this is going to be negative. And then the thing that's 6th grade math that you may have forgotten how to do, and we've talked about that if you have 3/5, 3 and that we have one, another one, another one. That makes 3. And then we're going to have 1/5, right? So we're going to have 1/5. Now, 1 is the same as 5/5. So this is 5/5. That's 5/5. That's 5/5. This is 1/5. We add those all together, we get 16/5. And the rule you learned was you have 1, 2, 3 times 5/5 plus the 1/5. So they taught you to take 5 times the 3 because it takes 5 to make a hole, and you have 3 holes, so that's 15 plus the 1 because that's how many spare pieces you have. So you have 16/5. So now all we do is say, well, we have 16/5 times 2/3 because we already know it's negative, right? So 2/3. And now I'm just going to put this, and I look, and I know right away 5 doesn't go into 16 or 2. 3 doesn't go into 16 or 2. But if I look, I can just say, oh, well, so what I have is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 16, times the 2 over 5 times the 3. All right, I don't have anything that simplifies. So that means I have 32/15. And we said it was negative. Got to be careful, don't drop the negative. Right? So that means we have 32/15, which means I have 15/15 and another 15/15 and then 2/15, which means I have -2 and 2/15. That's kind of a long explanation, but if you didn't understand fractions, well, there's how it works. So if you don't understand fractions, come in after school. I'll give you a hand, give you some extra instruction so you can understand fractions. Okay, these are a little more work, but not much more work. What you just have to remember is you're going to invert and multiply. Okay, so you're going to invert, multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, you don't change this one, right? So this is going to be -3/4 times, because we're going to use the inverse operation, and the reciprocal of 12 is 1 over 12. Okay, so that means we're going to have a negative times a negative is a negative times a positive is a negative. And then I'm just going to write this out as 3 times 1 over 2 times 2 times 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. See how your hundreds chart's going to come in? Because now what I see is I have a 3 here and a here. So all I've got left on is a 1. So it's going to be negative 1 and then 16ths. That's the solution. Okay, so really all we did was apply the rules of multiplication, a negative times a positive. That's the only new thing. Everything else you've already been doing. So now what we're going to do is this one down below. Again, we're going to turn this into a usable fraction. So you're going to have 21 sevenths, right? 3 times the 7 is 21, plus the 3 sevenths, which is going to give you 24 sevenths. So you have 24 sevenths negative times the reciprocal of 4 21st, which is 21 firsts or fourths. Okay, now is when I'm going to break out my prime factorization chart. I'm going to get to my hundreds chart, and I'm going to write out that 24 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 over 7. And 21 is 3 times 7, and 4 is 2 times 2. Now by multiplying all these together, now I'm just going to look for what simplifies. And I see that I have a 7 here and a 7 there, a 2 here and a 2 on the bottom, and a 2 on the top and a 2 on the bottom. So what I'm left with is 2 times 3, which is 18 over 1, and it was negative. So this equals negative 18. Okay, so you should see how simple that becomes. Okay, and you should try it. We'll do these two in class, but hey, go ahead and try them on your own and come to class and let's see how you do with those two. Okay, this one, you want to turn these into either decimals or turn them into fractions. This is just 1/10, right? So that means we're going to have negative 7/20 times positive 1/10. And we're just going to multiply across, right? So that means I'm going to have negative 7 over 200. Now they're asking me to make it a decimal. Then all I'm going to do is take 7 divided by 200, right? And that's going to give me negative, don't drop that negative, 0.035. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. What I did was I knew that 7 over 200 equaled 3.5 over 100. And I know about moving the decimal, so I just said that's going to be 0.035. Oh, and it's negative, so there we go. Okay, we're going to do one last one. That's this one here. We got to remember a couple rules. We got to remember that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Then I'm done. Now it's just 6th grade math. Then I need to remember that when I do this, I'm going to invert and multiply by the reciprocal, which I don't ever invert the first one. So I got negative 9/20 times or divided by, right? And I know it's positive, so I can almost just forget that 6/10. And if I'm going to invert and multiply, that means I'm going to have negative 9/20 times 10, negative 10/6, which means now I'm going to have 3 times 3 because it's going to be positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. 10 is 2 times 5, right? And 20 is 2 times 2 times 5, and 6 is 2 times 3. So now I'm going to look and see what they have in common. Okay, they both have a 2 in common. They both have a 5 in common. They both have a 3 in common. That means all that's left over is the 3. And this is where you got to be careful. And I got those two 2's. This is positive 3/4. That's how you do it. if you got 100 start, see how quick that makes things? All right, that's 15 minutes. I don't want to take any longer than that. So tell you what, you try to do these 4 at home. We'll come into class and do them. We'll talk about them in class. We'll see how you did. You do these 4 at home. And the biggest thing you got to remember here is a negative. Remember these rules over here. Write this crap on everything, right? If you remember those rules, everything else is 6th grade math. Okay, good luck. Hey, have a good day.